Okay, so we're going to be using 4 colours today. If you don't have the advent calendar as shown, you can use any DK light worsted weight yarn. That's a yarn weight of 3. I'm going to be using white, pink, red and green, kind of a festive looking little elf. That's what we're going to be making today, a little elf, gnome, gonk type character. Okay, and with that we're going to be using 4mm G crochet hook. We're also going to need a yarn needle and a pair of scissors and some toy stuffing, which I don't actually have to hand right now, but you'll need some toy stuffing too. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so we're going to start off with the base colour, so his clothes, and I'm going to use a green to begin with. And we're going to do a little slip knot to begin, and then we're going to chain 4. You can also do a magic ring as well. So chain 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we're going to put our hook into our first chain, bring the yarn through and through the loop on your hook. We've got a little loop of chains, and into there we're going to do 7 single crochets. So this pattern's in US terms, so in UK terms that's 7 double crochet. We're going to start off with a little chain 1 to begin though, then putting our hook into the center, just wrapping it around the chains. We work a single crochet. We want 7, so that's 1, 2 and 7. Okay, 7 single crochet, and then if you've carried the tail end you should be able to pull that hole closed, but if not you can just sew it closed. Okay, we're going to join the round. We're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet, slip stitch into there, and then we're going to do a little chain 1, but don't count that as a stitch. Then going back into the same stitch we just slip stitched into, we're going to do 2 single crochet. So 1 and 2. 2 single crochet, and we're going to do 2 single crochet in each stitch around, so 2 in the next stitch as well, 2 in the next stitch, and so on, and we'll have a stitch count of 14, so we're doubling up our stitch count. Okay, so 2 single crochet in each stitch around. Okay, just coming up to the last stitch, 2 in there as well. And be careful because it always looks like there's another stitch, but that's your previous slip stitch, or the fake stitch as I like to call it. We're going to skip that. Find your first single crochet, make sure you got a stitch count of 14, and we're going to slip stitch into there to join the round. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're going to do some back post stitches. This can be a little bit fiddly, so if you can't do back post stitches, just work into the stitches as normal, but we're going to start off with a little chain 1, ignore that as a stitch, then going into the same stitch we just slip stitched into, instead of going in from the front, we're going to go in from the back, so this direction, and then move over to the next single crochet and go in from the front like that, and you catch this little bit of yarn loop on the back. We're going to grab our yarn and bring that under that loop through those stitches, bring it up, and then do a single crochet as normal. So that's a single crochet back post stitch, but like I said, if that's too complicated, just work into the back loops only, or just work into the stitches as normal. It won't affect the pattern. For the next one, we go into that second stitch we worked into, so we go back into there, but from the back this time, not the front, then move over to the next fresh stitch from the front. Grab the yarn, bring it through, work a single crochet. Then the next one, we go into that last stitch worked from the front, but this time we go from the back, then the next stitch from the front, so on and so forth. And we repeat that all the way around, just working 1 single crochet into each back loop around, keeping a stitch count of 14. Okay, so you always start in the last stitch worked. Oops. So we go from the back to the front. Okay. It's coming up to the end. Oops. Okay, try that last one again. And the very, very last one though is we have to go into the last stitch from the back, but then we go into the fake stitch, so that previous slip stitch from the front. So we have to do that just to work that last single crochet back post stitch. You need to check your stitch count is 14, and then you should find that your stitches are now at a 90-degree angle like this. We find our first single crochet we made, and we're going to slip stitch into there. So you end up with this almost like little mini pot shape like this. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to do 2 rounds, rounds 4 and 5 of just 1 single crochet in each stitch around. We're going to start with a little chain 1, don't count that as a stitch. Go back into the same single crochet you just slip stitched into and work a single crochet. We're going to work 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 14. I'm going to do that for 2 rounds, okay, 2 rounds, joining the end of the round with a slip stitch and then do a chain 1. Okay, so I shall do that and then I shall come back. Okay, just coming up to the end of the second round. Again, be careful to avoid that fake stitch. Slip stitch in your first single crochet to join, and hopefully it looks like this, and you still have a stitch count of 14. Okay, what we're going to do now is a little chain 1 again, don't count that as a stitch, and this time we're going to go back into the same stitch we just slip stitched into and work a single crochet, and then we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. So I like to do the invisible decrease by going onto the next front loop only, then immediately the next front loop, then I grab the yarn, bring it under those front loops, and then work a single crochet, and that creates a much smoother finish. And we're going to repeat that all the way around up to the last 2 stitches. So again, single crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together just under those front loops. Okay, so repeat that all the way around up to the last 2 stitches. Okay, and then when you get to the last 2 stitches left, we're just going to do 1 single crochet in the last 2. So a single crochet in the next stitch and a single crochet in the last stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch in the first single crochet to join the round. Okay, like so. So hopefully it looks like this, and your stitch count should have gone down to 10. Okay, now we're going to join our next colour. So we're going to do the head colour, and the only nearest head colour, skin colour I've got is this pink. So I like to do lots of different colours, but we only got pink, so it's going to be very, very bright pink little gnome elf thing. So we're going to join our new colour in a chain 1. And then what we're going to do, we're going to do 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches. So go back into the same stitch you just slip stitched into, work a single crochet, then a single crochet in the next stitch. So in the first 5, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches. Then we're going to create his little nose. So we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to slip stitch in the same stitch as that last single crochet. So go back in there again, just work a little slip stitch. And that creates this little picot. Okay, and then we're just going to finish up with 1 single crochet in the last 5 stitches. So next stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, ignore the fake stitch, the confusing fake stitch, and we're going to slip stitch in that first pink single crochet. Okay, I'm going to cut the green yarn because we've finished with the green yarn. It's just going to get in the way. Tuck that on the inside. Okay, Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little chain 1 again. Don't count that as a stitch. I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first 5, starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into. So 1 single crochet in the first 5, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This brings us up to our little nose nubbin thing, and we're going to skip the chains and we're going to skip that slip stitch. You need to find the next single crochet over here, and you put your hook into there. Okay, we're going to bring the yarn through, but before we finish we need to pop those chains to the front, pull your yarn, and then finish your single crochet, and that creates a nice little nose. And we finish up with 1 single crochet in the last 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then slip stitch in the first single crochet. Okay, moving on to the next round, we're just going to do a chain 1 again, don't count that as a stitch. Starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into, we're just going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 10. So just 1 single crochet in each stitch around. Okay, coming up to the end, avoid that fake stitch and slip stitch into our first single crochet, then bring up a loop. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just give him some stuffing before we close him up. So keeping your working yarn out the way, I'm just going to add some stuffing. Okay, there we go, not too overstuffed. Rejoin your hook. And what we're going to do now is we're going to single crochet 2 together until the end. So do a little chain 1. Then going back into the same stitch we just slip stitched into. Again, I'm just going to do the invisible decrease, so front loop, then next front loop, yarn over, and do a single crochet. So single crochet 2 stitches together all the way around until your stitch count goes down to 5. And then just slip stitch in the first single crochet to join. And we can cut our yarn. Here's a little tail for sewing, pull the loop through. It's got a bit of a pointy head at the moment, so what we're going to do, it's going to be hidden under a hat anyway, but we're just going to sew close the remaining hole by going into the next stitch and out through the next, into the next stitch, out through the next. Okay, and then come up through the center and then go back down through the center and out through the bottom, and then just pull that down a bit so he's got more of a rounded head. And again, this bottom sticks out so it can make him fall over, so what I recommend is just going back in and out through somewhere else and do the same thing. That should pull on the stuffing a bit and pull that in so it sits flat and he stands up better. Okay, and then just hide your tail end. Okay, so now all he needs now is a beard and a hat. So let's move on to his hat next. Okay, so for his hat we're going to use red yarn. Let's make him a little Father Christmas type thing. And for the hat, what we're going to do is a little slip knot. And we're going to chain 7. Okay, chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 7. And we're going to do a slip stitch in the second chain from our hook. So there's our first, don't count the loop on your hook. There's our first chain, there's our second. In the second, we do a slip stitch. I'm going to do a slip stitch in the next stitch, in the next chain as well. And hopefully you can see okay, red never shows up well on camera. Then we're going to do a single crochet in the next chain. And then a single crochet in the next chain. We've got 2 chains left. We're going to finish up with a half double crochet. So in UK terms, it's a half treble. So in the next chain, a half double crochet and a half double crochet in the last chain. Okay, so we've got a stitch count of 6. I'm going to chain 1, don't count that as a stitch, turn, and we're going to do that in reverse. So a half double crochet in the first stitch, half double crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, and a single crochet in the next stitch. And then the last 2 stitches, we're going to do a slip stitch, but I find it easier just going onto the front loop. It's easier to catch. So a slip stitch in there and a slip stitch in the last front loop. Okay, now we're going to repeat that up to rows 8. Is it 8 or 9? 8 or 9, I think. So what we're going to do is we're just going to chain 1 and turn. We start off with a slip stitch in the first 2, again just working onto that front loop. Slip stitch in there, slip stitch in there, single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, and then a half double crochet in the next stitch and a half double crochet in the last stitch. Okay, that's row 3. You can see it's wider one end and more narrow the other. So we're going to repeat that up to rows 9. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 6 more rows. And then I shall come back, just keeping that pattern. Chain 1, turn. And then the wider ends, we start with half double crochets. And then the more narrow end, we start with slip stitches. Okay. Okay, just going up to the last row. So we've got 9 rows in total. Just keeping the pattern of the half double crochets, the wider end, slip stitches, the narrower end. And we've ended on the wider edge. And what we're going to do is cut the tail, but enough to leave for some sewing, and just pull that through. And what we're going to do now is hide this tail end first. So we're just going to sew that onto the inside a little bit, just neatly as you can. Trim that down. And then taking the longer end, we're going to fold our little hat in half, matching up the sides, and we're going to sew along up to the top. So going one side, then the other. As neatly as you can, just sew up your hat. Okay, and then when you get to the top, we're just going to sew that hole closed. So kind of similar to the drawstring sewing I showed a minute ago, going sort of over and out, pull over and out as neatly as you can until that hole closes. Okay, and then we're going to feed that down to the bottom. Don't pull too tightly because you want to keep that point on our hat, and we could neaten up the edge here a little bit, and then all that's left to do is to sew his little hat onto his head. And it's a good idea to get it right over his head. So the only bit showing is his little nose. Again, we're going to sew just not all the way around, just little areas. So sew a bit here, join here, join here, and join here. So if you join it all the way around, it can look a bit distorted. So just join it to the body in just a couple of places. So like there, and then I'm going to come back up and then kind of go over a bit, and then down for the body, but like over to here. Okay, that just keeps its shape a bit better. Okay, so I'm going to sew this better off camera and then come back. Okay, and there we go. So all that's really showing is his nose. And all that's left now is his beard. So I'm going to have to do a white beard. I like to do different coloured beards as well, like grey beards, black, brown. But we're going to go with this sort of typical Father Christmas white beard. So hopefully this shows up on camera, because I don't have any brown or black or grey in the advent calendar. So we have to work with what we've got. So we're going to do a slip knot, and then we're going to chain 9. So chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And what you want to do, because sometimes if you're using a chunkier yarn, this may be too long, and actually even this is too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off a couple of chains. So now we have, how many chains we got now? 2, 4, 6, 7. So I've chained 7. I just want to make sure that that lines up from one side to the other. So 7's actually better. So that's just something to check depending on what weight yarn you're using. If it's a thinner yarn, maybe chain 9. If it's a thicker, chunky yarn, maybe just chain 7. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch in the second chain from our hook, slip stitch into there. And we're going to slip stitch in each chain along. So slip stitch in the next chain all the way along. Okay. So slip stitch all the way across. And then what we're going to do is we're going to chain 4, chain 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to turn our work, and going back into these slip stitches, we're just going to slip stitch in the front loop only. So rather than going under both loops of that slip stitch, we're going to go just under. I wonder if I bring the red underneath, you might see a bit better. We're going to slip stitch just into that front loop. So slip stitch into there. Then we're going to chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then slip stitch in the next front loop only. There's a reason for that. Do that all the way across. Chain 4, 2, 3, 4. Slip stitch in the front loop only of that slip stitch. Coming up to the end, again, chain 4, 3, 4, and slip stitch in the front loop only of that last slip stitch. You've got something that looks like this, but we want to just do a little bit more. What we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, 2. We're going to flip the work upside down, and we're going to look for those skipped back loops that have now become front loops. So look for the center of that loop, and you should find, let's have a look, should find a little skipped front loop from that previous slip stitch. First one's a little bit tricky to find, and we're going to bring the yarn over. We're going to just slip stitch into there. We're going to do that all the way across. So chain 2, just 2, then find the next skipped loop from before. Okay, slip stitch into there, chain 2, slip stitch in the next skipped loop. Okay, just repeat that all the way across. Okay, when you get to the end, we're going to cut our yarn, pull that loop through, and hopefully you can see you've got 2 layers. This white is a nightmare. I much prefer a grey. It'll show up better on camera. But you've got 2 layers of little picots. You've got the 4 chain picots and the 2 chain picots worked into both sides of those slip stitches. And then all we need left to do is to wrap that around his little nose and sew into place. So I should do that, and then I shall come back. And there we go, there is our finished little Gonk elf gnome little character. And just make sure where the hat meets the clothing, as it were, that those corners is where you want to sew your beard with the smaller picos on the top, and his little nose sticks out. You can add eyes if you wanted to, but I think he's really cute as he is. But I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Hope you managed to follow along. A huge thank you as always to our HappyBerry Plus members and our YouTube channel members for helping make this video possible. And yeah, do check out our membership because we currently have a giveaway running for our members. So and nobody's entered yet, which is really surprising, so do check that out. But I will see you soon for some more crochet crafting fun. Join me. I think this video is coming out Monday, so maybe Christmas Eve is going to be our last one, and we're going to reveal the surprise festive mini make number 8, so the very last one, which hopefully you've been working on throughout December. But thanks for watching. See you soon. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.